Welcome to a new short update. Today we're going to discuss the fact that Bitcoin is not breaking 25k. We're correcting a little bit at this point and therefore altcoins are correcting a bit more. Or you could say that the altcoins were correcting first and now Bitcoin is following through as the US indices are opening up today and they are also opening up in the red. Before we continue, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Also check out our free trade letter. Tomorrow we are going to bring a new one towards you. And also make sure to check out our partnership with BitGet. This week alone, we've got a $2,000 usage share when you sign up through our affiliate link, which gives you an opportunity to join our exclusive giveaways, trading competitions, which gives you also the opportunity to possibly copy trade me. And if we talk about copy trading, if you join our premium membership, you can join my personal portfolio. You can see the returns on BitGet, but you can't join if you're not a member. Right now we are up to 10% in the first few weeks. We are doing really well and we are going to continue doing really well, and there are still spots open, so you can join if you want. Now, when we're looking at the markets, I think we can ultimately conclude that the markets are showing a ton of strength overall, which means that we come from 16k, we are up to 25, briefly touched a few times. And I think that the moment, we have been discussing this yesterday, the moment we are going to crack through 25k, we are going to continue and blast easily towards 30 or even higher, which means that right now, ultimately, the trend is still upwards, but in between, we've got some swift corrections. And we might be on the edge of having another one at this point, as we simply can't break through 25k. So what's happening at this point with the markets? We can see that the Nasdaq in itself is also showing some weakness. We can see that we are making lower highs, lower lows. Ultimately, therefore, we are looking for a case that we're going to drop back into the range. We are bouncing into support here, but we might be dropping a bit more further with the Nasdaq before we can continue the momentum, as overall we have been seeing a few weeks of relative strength. European stocks, same case at this point, showing strength, but today is a corrective day, as also the dollar index is showing a bit of strength at this point, as this one still turned upwards at this point. 10-year yield ultimately showing strength still, and we are approaching FOMC minutes, which means that we could continue this momentum if the FOMC minutes are going to say, yeah, we were debating 50 bips, but ultimately more people were for 25 bips. I think that if that comes out and they are continuing the policy at this point, because all of a sudden there's no real conclusion being drawn out of the economy, you can easily just hike from 0% to 0.25% to 5% and nothing really happens in the economy. It's a miracle, but if that is going to continue, then we're probably going to continue having the strength on the yields as well, and therefore putting some pressure on the markets. As if we are looking at the S&P, we can see the exact same conclusion. It's turning around at this point, which means that we potentially have a little bit more of a sustained correction taking place, which means that also Bitcoin can have some corrections here. It doesn't say that we're going to have a retest at 20k taking place, but we have to watch a few crucial levels. And therefore, if we're looking at the price action of Bitcoin at this point, we can ultimately conclude that we were trying to break through 25k here, as you can see, and we couldn't. Bulls will be arguing that there is a case that we're making higher lows and we're testing this equal high, and the next test we are going to do here is that we're going to blast through it. But ultimately, if I look at the charts at this point, I think that you clearly want to have a little bit more of consolidation like we have been seeing previously, and you want to have a build up before we start to break through it. And in that case, ultimately the best case is a retest of 22.4, but I think arguing towards 23.6 to 23.2 might be a relatively good correction through which we can see continuation taking place afterwards. So it doesn't mean that we need to break through to 25k at this point and continue running, but it grants the entire market to have a little bit of a breather before we can continue rallying. And therefore, if we look at altcoins at this point, a few of them are also correcting. So for instance, J-Link, we have been seeing some momentum here. We have been seeing the blast towards $8.40. Correcting, getting towards the first level of interest, but as you can see, my personal interest lies a bit lower, and I'm not sure whether I'm going to get it at this point, but I'm going to be looking at a case of $7.25 area for a clear long entry, which ultimately gives it a lot of times here, as you can see. there are those clear consolidations, the corrections taking place, and those are always an interesting point to jump into before we can have the continuation. I think it suits a lot with the markets at this point. Looking at Ether, I think this is still the play you're going to look for. Ultimately, the best is the retest here at 1550, but I think that 1600 is a great entry point out of this rising wedge structure. Didn't really make any new highs, but we have been taking the liquidity here, and then we started to turn around. So in this case, with Bitcoin, it's ultimately the same story. If, and then we're looking at the lower time frames, if we are losing 24.2, I think we will just fall beneath towards 23.5. If 24.2 is going to be holding and we retest the highs again, I think we can continue running towards 30k. If that's not the case at this point, then I'll be looking at a case of correcting towards 23.3, giving all the altcoins a significant chance to be buying back into it. CFX, massive runner here. I think you can day trade it ultimately. I think that right now we are into a case of correction. We have been sweeping the high and started to fall. Potentially we've got a first short trigger. The second short trigger is around this area of 33.5 cents. If we are having a turnaround there, I think you're looking at 27.4 and anything between 21 to 23.5 to ultimately get that serious bounce, right? So if we're getting a bounce, then I'd probably assume that we're going to have a bounce of 35 to 40%. When we're looking at Phantom, shows some momentum at this point. Got the entry point here, but I'm not sure whether we can actually finalize this. Or that we're going to have a correction taking place all the way towards 48 cents, and then I'm optimally heavily interested into taking long positions at this point. So markets are correcting, which is ultimately just fine. I think that it's healthy for the market, but it doesn't mean that we're going to have a bear market. It doesn't mean, for now at least. I mean, if you drop beneath 22k, then we are losing construction. It's just inside the entire build-up, and if we have some sort of serious sideways pattern, I think we can just continue breaking towards 30k. That's the update for today. Make sure to hit the like button, and I'll see you again tomorrow.